I am Kelly Friend. I am the Senior Manager of Education and Workforce here at TPMA. I have a wonderful lineup of panelists today that I am super excited about having here. These are my friends, my peers. We talk consistently about veterans and veterans in our communities. Um, this really came about because not too long ago, TPMA wrote a report for White County, Indiana, and we really got to see the ability of what veterans bring to rural and urban environments. And I started looking around my area and in the small town that I live in, and started seeing veteran contributions everywhere. Our local fire department is 90% veterans. We have a very small fire department, but it is staffed and volunteered by mostly veterans, and they keep on giving back. So with that being said, I'd like to start introducing my guests and my friends. So Roy, do you mind talking a little bit about your service and your community involvement?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. My name is Roy Martin. I recently retired from the Marine Corps this past December, did 20 years, infantry artillery, ended up Grissom Air Reserve Base working with the reservists, and I transitioned into INVETS with becoming the manager of outreach and partnership. In regards to community involvement, most recently I am now a mentor for veteran court, so veterans who are involved in the justice system. I mentor them, help them get the wins back into the sale. And then for the schools, I've established a 501(c)(3) for extracurricular booster clubs, financial literacy and empowerment course, and then developed a leadership curriculum for some of those student leaders.
Thank you, Roy. I really appreciate that. Dana?
My name is Dana Lesko, 24-year Army veteran, all artillery. Spent 2.5 years in the reserves. The rest of it was all active duty. Retired in 2017, was a high school teacher, and all the way now I'm the director of veteran ambassadors here at INVETS. My community involvement is I like to be involved with the Economic Development Group here in LaPorte County in Northwest Indiana. And then I like coaching youth in sports. And then my big thing that I like to support is suicide awareness for veterans, as well as the Gold Star families here in the Central and Northwest Indiana.
Ernesto?
Yeah, sure. I was a Marine platoon sergeant. I did 2 Operation Iraqi Freedoms and 2 Enduring Freedom tours. I was an advisor in the military at my last couple tours, and it's been a wonderful time transitioning, becoming a civilian. I'll tell you, I didn't do 20 years. I didn't retire from the Marine Corps, but I took that time, that youth that I had when I was 32 years old, and I came in here and I transitioned. I went back to school, got my education, and then after that, I decided to try my hand at business. So I opened several businesses. I've since sold them, and went back into the workforce and doing what I love, helping veterans, establishing processes and programs for veteran services. And I work for Department of Workforce Development, and I oversee jobs for Veteran State Grant for Northern Indiana.
Thank you, Ernesto. I really appreciate it. And I am also here with a colleague here at TPMA. Aaron and I have been talking about this on car rides and meetings, and we have been talking about how much veterans invest in our communities and what that ROI looks like. So, Aaron, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kelly. So my name is Aaron Finley. I'm the Director of Housing Community Development here at TPMA. I was raised in and still live in Dayton, Ohio. Really important veteran community here, having Wright-Patterson Air Force Base just a couple miles from where I am right now. And one of the things that it's really been fascinating and interesting to me. One of the first projects I ever got here at TPMA was to put together some case studies about good veteran friendly hiring practices that employers were doing all around the country. And, we got on the phones and on our video calls, and we had lots of interviews, and we saw a wide range of kind of veteran hiring practices from things that just, at one point seemed kind of just almost like slogans in some cases, all the way down to like really in the depth, a lot of real important kind of thinking about the nuances, the ways we can make those employers really, veteran ready. And it's really been it was really eye-opening to kind of think about how important those kinds of approaches would be, and really the impact those veterans are having on those employers and the communities around. And so, yeah, you and I, we have had a lot of opportunities to talk about this and how important it is. And of course, also as we think about community development and all the work that I still do here at TPMA, really feel the kind of impact, right? That making sure that we have communities that are ready for veterans to kind of make those communities better, to give back. And so actually really thrilled that you extended the offer for me to join you. So thanks to our panel. Thanks for you gentlemen for your service and for being here today, and excited to have the conversation.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. So for our friends here, what made you choose? Dana, we're in Northern Indiana together. Roy, you're in Central. Ernie, or Ernesto, you're up here north too. So what made you choose the communities in which you live in?
Yeah, so when I retired, the military will move me one time at no cost to me. They pick it all up. But Indiana State has made it very attractive. One of the things that they offer is they don't tax military retirement. So that's a huge plus. The other thing they offer is free or reduced education for any state university or college for my kids. So those were huge benefits. But really, it was a community that I was able to be exposed to and being involved with. I joke that my kids are like potted plants when I was in the military, and I'd move them from window to window trying to get some sunshine. Being part of a community, let them put roots into the ground. And this is a community that I want them to grow up in.
Thank you.
Yeah, much like Roy, for me, this is actually my third community, my second in the state of Indiana. But when I was in the military, when you're in the military, you move every 3 to 5 years. Some people get to stay a little bit longer, but you're just constantly moving. And being able to set down roots and be involved in a community is a huge decision because, some people are raising kids. I had two children. They were fresh going into high school, and I wanted to grow them with a great education. I wanted a community where they had stuff to do, where the community was investing back into itself, growing the education, growing the businesses. There was, and that was huge for me. So finding a community that was invested in itself and wasn't just, you see the ghost towns when you drive through sometimes. And then you drive through a town like where I'm from in LaPorte, where they're, the downtown is just full of small shops and great restaurants. And you can tell that the people who are in the town and the economic group that are there, they're really involved with growing and getting businesses in and having things for people to do. And it was just super important. And knowing that the community was invested back into the community was huge for me.
Okay. Well, guess guess it's my turn. Thank you. Uh, I came here. I had gotten out of the Marine Corps, and I really didn't have a plan. He said, you know, a lot of us in our field, we tend to stick to things that are going to be uh, related to the field where we came from. So I was looking to get into the Border Patrol, right? And they had this early out thing in the Marine Corps. If you could sign up for it. So I did the physical, everything. Turns out I had a murmur in my heart, so I couldn't do it. I didn't know that. So I was already out of the Marines, and and it hit me hard. I didn't know what to do. So I had a house, I had a kid, I had no job, no nothing. So that I had one plan and that was it, and it just kind of like shot it out the sky. So I ended up selling my property and I purchased an RV and I parked it on the side of a friend's house who let me stay there so I can get back on my feet. So um, I bumped into a lever, a local veteran employment representative, and she said, "What's your plan?" I said, "I don't know." I said, I can't do law enforcement. I can't do that anymore. I don't know what to do." And she said, "You should go to school, use your GI Bill." And I said, "Man, what's that?" And she's like, "Well, I'm going to show it to you." So I went to Southern Illinois University, which was an off campus degree program in March Air Force Base, right down the street from where I was staying in Riverside. So it was on the weekends. It was 16 hours on the weekends and a 1 year hard hitting program. So I did that for 1 year. I got my GI Bill, man, a big old smile on my face. First every month I was getting a paycheck. I got my service connection right away. So that helped out tremendously. But when I was done with school, I was still in the, Marine Corps area, Oceanside, Riverside, San Diego. So all the community colleges were booked. I couldn't get one class. I went to Palomar Community College. They had no priority, and if they did, it didn't matter. There was just so many vets getting out trying to go to school. And this was in 2011. So I came out here to visit a buddy in Elkhart, Indiana, and I went to Goshen College, and I said, "Hey, I would like to use my GI Bill with you guys. I want to see if we can use it." Um, and they kind of referred me to Ivy Tech, and I went to Ivy Tech, and so you can take anything you want. This is a brand new school up here, up in Elkhart and Goshen area. This is perfect. And I said, "Great." I told my wife we're moving to Elkhart, Indiana, and that's how we ended up here, was to go to Ivy Tech. Um, I, so what I've learned about this community, that saying in New York, uh, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Um, if you can make it in Elkhart, you can make it anywhere. So, so this place is set up for a lot of success. It's easy to do business, and the community is reaching out to us, and I love it. This is, cold in the winter, hot in the summer, but I wouldn't trade it for anything just because of the fact that it's just been such a great place to raise a family, very veteran friendly, and it's just getting better for us. And now I get to help improve as well. So it's all wonderful. But thank you.
Appreciate you guys all sharing. Um, we've had these conversations and I kind of want to bring them to this like larger group. We talk about um we talk about what you guys are looking for as veterans and your families. But we very rarely talk about the return on investment that a community gets. So like you guys just highlighted it, and I really want to call it out here. Ernie, Ernesto, you talked about the education and using your GI Bill at Ivy Tech. And that really comes into Ivy Tech receiving tuition and revenue dollars to give back into that community. So you're bringing new dollars in. Dana, I have heard that you invested in 2 Indiana communities, buying a house and putting those tax dollars in and earning an income here. Roy, I mean, hearing about your kids investing in their school and putting kids in the K through 12 system and that school benefiting from added children. Especially we know that children are we have schools that are downsizing. So you guys are adding to this area. When did it ever or had it ever occurred to you the amount of value that all of you were bringing to a community? And did you ever see like how different agencies or community members tried to meet you like halfway and be like, yes, we want you, like, and in attraction wise for you guys to settle there?
I think one of the things with veterans is it's not so much that there are unique asks or wants from the veteran. I think that the same asks, wants, and needs across the whole population. We want good schools, we want affordable housing, we want a good community. I don't think there's really anything unique other than that we are generally displaced after we leave our service and we have the freedom to go somewhere. And we generally know when we're going to be separating, so we can kind of start looking to see where do we want to go, start looking at school systems and things like that. Uh, but those are kind of the tangibles. The intangibles are like those main street celebrations. Like the town that I live in has a First Friday, and you get to see the whole community together. I think those are little impacts that attracted me to the area. And then the willingness to reach out, not just to veterans, but to outsiders and welcome them in. One of the things I see is some of the smaller communities, they're a little closed off and they know what they know and that's what they like. So being open to new residents is a big part of it.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing that I have to say is we do bring, economic growth to the communities that we join and we come into, with retirement and our disabilities, and then we get another job because, we're retiring and getting out between the ages of 30 and like 45, average. So we're doing a whole nother career, but it's not just a veteran who's getting out of the military, it's a spouse, it's kids. They're setting down roots, they're growing, and those kids, I mean, how many of us have met somebody who said, "Man, I can't wait to get out of this town when I graduate," or "I can't wait to get out of here." You know what I mean? But if cities and communities are growing and they're celebrating veterans, they're celebrating everybody, not just veterans. I mean, I'm a veteran. I want to be, celebrating all of my fellow brothers and sisters, but at the same time, everybody. Like it's a town, it's a community. If my kids love being in this town and there's stuff to do and it's a great place to raise a family and their education was awesome and the teachers were great because they're hiring really good teachers and they're building homes that veterans want to move to and growing as a community. I mean, for generations and generations, that city is now growing and not becoming that ghost town that we drive through, right? Moving away and going to the bigger cities. I know Indy and Lafayette and Fort Wayne are amazing cities. They are. Indiana's an amazing state. But there are also these little towns all over Indiana that are just amazing. And if you just spend a little bit of time in there and watch the city grow and invest in it, yourself, boy, oh boy, would it really help.
Yeah, I'm gonna, Dana, you just triggered a conversation that we just had in a smaller group, like because we talk about these things, right? Roy, you had some statistics that you were sharing with me, right, on this ROI. Do you mind just like talking a little bit about like that data? Because you got I wouldn't say like a hidden skill set, but you got a skill set, right? So as a man of many trades right now. So do you mind talking about that?
Uh, so the VA puts out data about how federal dollars are spent on veterans. And the most recent data is from fiscal year 23. And the VA, so federal dollars, it was about $4.5 billion were injected into Indiana just from the veterans that reside here. And that ranges from compensation for disability. That does not include the retirement if a military member retired, but also the VA home loan, that money being injected because that's backed by the VA, the healthcare costs that are paid for. And that's not just going to the VA hospitals. If a veteran doesn't live within a close proximity to a VA facility or the closest appointment time-wise is out too far, they'll send that veteran to their local doctor, and that doctor is then paid by the VA. The GI Bill, it's not just a veteran who can use it, but at certain points in a service member's career, they can transfer that entitlement to their dependents, their spouse, or the children, and they could use it. So there's many different facets of how the VA spends money, but it's roughly $4.5 billion in 1 year.
Thank you. I think that, I mean, that's a mic drop to me, right? Like, so as we look at our Midwestern partners, like in the States, like that's Indiana. If you are on this call with a like from anywhere else, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, if you're friends of across the nation, these are dollars to look at. Um, and dollars to realize like that's economic growth. Aaron,
Yeah.
you got something that
Yeah.
you'd like to yeah.
So this is really critical, right? And Roy, thanks for kind of providing like the real quantitative, right? It's $4.5 billion in a single year to the state of Indiana. So, right, in some ways we see being veteran ready, right, is economic development, right, in some kind of way, right? And those impacts are really critical. And I think Dana at the top, maybe you talked about like veteran-owned businesses and like there's all these different ways, right? Even just aside from like direct like federal spending that can be pumped into a community, there's all these other different kind of impacts. But I started a little bit, during my introduction, talking about when we talk to employers, um, there was a kind of a clear difference between employers that just kind of said they were veteran friendly, as opposed to those ones who had really spent the time to be veteran ready. And I think that distinction is really critical, understanding the economic impact that can be had, right, by being truly veteran ready, veteran welcoming, and all those kinds of things. You all have different kinds of experiences, moved around, whether during your time serving with the military, and then also some of you have kind of jumped around a little bit since then. Can you talk a little bit about the difference? Like, what is it that makes a community like actually appealing? Like we heard, it's willingness to have new residents and those kinds of things. But what are there's some like kind of tangible ways that you knew that this is a community that you would want to be in and would want you there, and how that was communicated? What are the kinds of things you're looking for?
So one of the things I would like to just kind of community, yes, but the long pole in the tent with the community is that employment. And if I
Yeah.
could touch on that a little bit, I work with employers in addressing their needs. And one of the things that I'm very frank about is I never want anyone to drop their standards, not to make an accommodation, but I do want them to be open to competency. Project management is a great example. Folks in the military, they move 1,200 individuals from somewhere in the United States, overseas, across continents, conduct operations for months, and come back. That is project management, that's program management, that's competency.
Yeah.
So somebody who is veteran ready, they're going to ask for the PMP, the Agile, or the Scrum, but be open to just the competency of the individual.
Yeah, I think that's critical with employers, right? And I think we're actually maybe even have kind of future opportunities, maybe when we all can get back together to really dive really deeply like into employment and things, like competencies and, where there are opportunities. I'm wondering just on like a community level, what are some of those things? Again, maybe that indicate to you that they are welcome to new residents. Maybe those are systems that kind of understand that maybe the spouse of a veteran, is an important part to think about. We don't just want to forget about spouses and partners and kids and all those kinds of things. Are there other things that you've experienced either in helping place veterans or yourself as you looked around at other communities, like the real kind of tangible things that made you think, this is a place that wants me and I want to be here?
So there's a couple of things, that will draw you into a community. Education is one of them. Job placement, got to have a job and a place to live. So you're experiencing growth in these rural towns. They've been growing about 5% every single year for about the last decade. It's just crazy. Housing is an issue. There's a lack of it. That's a country thing. You see fast homes being popped up, built up, but just consider that what we were just talking about was the VA home loan. Um, that's a interesting kind of program where you can take a person and they suddenly qualify for this program. They could put zero money down and get a home, right? That's wonderful. And then you get the education piece. You get a stipend. Meanwhile, you get a job. And that's where you can try to figure yourself out. Now, this is a climb. That's the climb. What in vets and what other programs are trying to do is trying to prevent that climb from happening, because that's where we fall short. And that's where depression sets in. That's where these challenges sets in. And that's where you get the veteran suicides. And that's, so in order for us to be impactful, we have to not, businesses need to understand you're not hiring them for what they have done. You're hiring them for what they could do down the road. You're not hiring them because, I owe it to a veteran. Uh, that's wonderful. But, there's just this talent and there's this gap that we have to catch up because we decided to go serve our country. If you take myself and two other people that, we're both, all three of us are 18 years old, and they go ahead and one of them chooses to go to the workforce, the other one chooses education. Now they got 14 years to build on experience. Meanwhile, they can go to school while they're working. They can do all these things. It is challenging. Things are tight, but they have the family support. They can go to their tia's house, have some tacos. They can they can just hang out with their family. They go to birthday parties, do all this stuff, right? Meanwhile, the the active duty service member is kind of staying still in this pool of water. So if you fast forward, you know, um, someone like myself that didn't do the full 20, we don't get retirement, we don't get any of that. But we don't get our time back either. It just disappears. And when I have to compete with every single body that's my age, saying, well, you're 32, you don't have a degree. Oh, you're 32 years old, you don't have all these other competencies. Yeah, but I tell you what I do have. I have this VA home loan. I'm going to live in a nice neighborhood. I'm going to go make $14 an hour and still qualify for this home. Meanwhile, my daughter's still going to go to a great school. Then I'm going to get the help that I need from the VA. I'm going to get mental health. I'm going to get, physical recovery. And then I'm going to make these connections. So there's like this power catch up kind of curve that we have to do as kind of people that are getting out of the military. How can a town be attractive? I'm going to tell you, these rural towns, these towns outside of these cities, dude, I'm like an hour and a half away from Chicago. I'm like 2 hours away from Detroit. I can go down to Toledo if I want. And this place is like designed for veterans in a way where we can come in here and get an opportunity where we can go to work, and much like competing in the workforce. But we do have to play catch up, and we're not asking the employers to say, hey, you know what, you got to play catch up with this guy, because you're right, they do, like Roy said, they do have to put in an effort and they got to go ahead and put in the work. But ultimately, that's the climb that we have to figure it out. I don't want to sound like Miley Cyrus, but at the end of the day, it's just it's the trip, man, getting up to that mountain. Um, but really, if you look at the numbers, they work. I worked for the homeless veteran program here for 2 years, and I'll tell you, I saw veterans dying from poverty. And it was just the craziest thing. They'd have appointments for their clinics and they'd have to get picked up and dropped off. There was no rural transportation. And it was just heartbreaking, and that's for me as a veteran. It was like, um, we need to do better. And programs have changed, but that was 10 years ago. And programs have changed and they have improved. And that's all we're looking for. A lot of us are just trying to find their way through this maze and trying to make the climb. So you're asking what can attract someone to a community? I would love to say it would be the family, the support system, and all that. But technically, people forgot about us, man. They think we're self-reliant. They think that we don't need our family anymore, and they learn to live without us, and we have to learn to live without them. And that's why a lot of us choose to move away from family and create our own identity from scratch.
Yeah, I can add on a little bit. Here in Indiana, according to the data, our most moved to counties are Marion, Hamilton, Johnson, Lake, Hendricks, Allen, Tippecanoe, St. Joe, and Clark, in that order. The things that they share are proximity to urban centers, employment hubs, strong suburban quality of life, access to higher education, healthcare and VA services, and transportation and connectivity. So, just what both of them just said is having access to what they need for their families and for themselves. can be a huge thing. Is there a CBOC in this town? How far do I have to travel to get health care? Um, can I hop on the bus if I need to hop on the bus? What is the housing market like? So all of these things are super important to veterans. I think the most important thing is finding a community that fits their needs. Not every veteran wants to get out and live in a big city with hustle and bustle and all of that stuff. They want to find that smaller community. But having access to those things, all of those things that I just shared is super important. And, especially because we are a band of brothers, and the thing is, we take care of each other. But most importantly, it's family, right? We look for what we can do to take care of our families. We will take care of our families before we take care of ourselves. It's that important. So having those things in our lives is very important to us.
Dana, I think this goes into my next question. If you guys don't mind, Dana, can you explain how you and Roy met and what that relationship looks like?
Yeah,
Like
sure.
how did you guys get to know each other? And like I really want to know yeah, go ahead, just tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
I'm gonna
veteran,
check with you.
it's a veteran meeting a veteran story. I mean, I came on into NVETS. Obviously, NVETS helps transitioning service members as they get out of the military to find great communities, great careers, and anything really that they need here in the state of Indiana. Roy was the first sergeant over in the Marine Corps unit over there on Grissom Air Force Base. And I reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'm, Dana from InVets," and he knew a guy named Jerry who was part of our group. And I said, "Hey, let me come talk to your Marines. Let me see what I can do to help them." And he was like, "Yeah, come on over, man. Let's do it. Plus, I'm getting out really soon, and so is my commander. So let's do this." So I showed up and had a great day. I brought Sarah, our CEO. She was there as well. Had a great time meeting all the Marines there and really kind of helping them out because one of the things about young Marines and young service members, especially in a reserve or guard, they'll typically have very crazy jobs. They're working at a gas station, they're working at a fast food place, but they have these skills that they have earned and gained going through their MOS training and their time in the Marine Corps or basic training in AIT. And then they come back and they don't think, "Oh, I've got all these skills that I use on the weekends. Why don't I, use that, build my resume, and become better and work and be better?" So he brought us in and said, "Hey, I want you to help these guys." And I think we met like 50 people. And we ended up helping like 22, 23 of them improve their jobs over the next 6 to 9 months. I helped one kid get a car. We did all kinds of things. It was fun. But then Roy and I continued to have these conversations. He started to come out of retirement. InVets was like looking for somebody, and I was like, "Man, I know this great guy. He's awesome." I'm a big fan of Roy. He is, we all laugh because he's very data driven and gets all of this information that none of us really know, but he knows. But he is probably one of the best investments InVets has done in a long time. He's a great guy. And we just continue to work together and going forward, as long as we're always working together and for the same goals here in Indiana, I think Roy and I are going to be long life friends, even though we've only known each other for a year or so. He is just one of those veterans that is in a community that is doing great things, and you don't have to ask him to because he's already doing it.
I appreciate it, Dan. And one of the things in that visit, we had a gentleman, he was a micro miniature repairman. So he would fix circuit boards to be able to solder them, fix radios. And he was one of those folks that was working at the gas station. And Dana with InVets helped get him a better opportunity. And going back to Aaron's point about the community, is if you have different organizations, it doesn't have to just be a VFW, DAV, American Legion, but some sort of civic community where veterans can interact with each other, those bonds start to form, and it essentially just becomes a giant spider web of essentially taking care of self and others. And I'm a firm believer that once you stop surviving and start thriving, that is contagious, and the whole community just does better. And it's a network, and I think it's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, thanks first off, thanks for those stories. I think it really helps, but it also really highlights the importance of having, right, those networks, right, those opportunities to connect. And that's, I think, a really important part of that. I'm wondering a little bit about because I think all of you have had some experience in either kind of providing services, working to connect veterans with resources or job opportunities or communities. When things don't work as well, right? If you've experienced any of that, where there's some kind of fractures in those systems, in those support systems, and those things that are the most, helpful in allowing, attracting veterans, but also allowing veterans to like have that full impact, right, on their communities. Where have you seen or even heard about, maybe anecdotally, we don't need to hear specific communities or anything, but when those structures kind of break down or don't work as well as you'd like to see them work, where are those, those kind of cracks, where do you see some of those occur?
Aaron, I I think I have a little bit of story if Ernesto wants to talk about how we met
Oh,
a
sure.
decade ago because there was a crack in the system that he was trying to build.
Great.
You wanna talk a little bit about that, Ernesto, about how we met and that break and what became out of that break of a system that didn't work?
Yeah, so I mean, I met Kelly when she was a youngster, man. She was a she she had just become the manager at Goodwill. But we grew from that. So I knew her for a few years after that. But basically what had happened, um, we had raised some money and I couldn't handle any funds just because I was a state employee. And we had to have a not-for-profit partner. But one of the things that we created was the stand downs, and they just kind of exploded um, with a lot of supporting services. The vendors, the invitations, the applying for the grants for the Department of Labor, putting things together, trying to come up with ideas and ways to make things easier. And uh, we had a beautiful clinic here in Goshen, and then they built their super CBOC in this Mishawaka, which is a few miles away from there. And that left a gap of services. It definitely did. But we were trying to figure out a way to get veterans to register and get their DD 214s and identify homeless veterans. And I can't tell you how many people Kelly has helped, but it's got to be in the thousands as far as it comes for veterans. And it's just been amazing. But we met in a sense. I needed a partner, and she came through. So that's how we met.
Yeah. And Ernie or Ernesto, sorry, I keep on doing that because we have an outside relationship other than the professional. We've been friends for a long time. That stand down is a 1 day event in Northern Indiana, but it happens nationally to assist veterans in connecting with their community and providers in the VA. So they have like a one-stop shop so they can get it all done in 1 day. What Ernesto is being so humble about is him and a group of other veterans were really trying to start this. And they came into systems that were broken. Providers, community providers that really just didn't understand the ROI of why being not just veteran friendly, and I say that as the cup of coffee or the parade, like they thought that they could just do this one thing one time a year and it would make the veteran experience okay. Ernesto taught me that this is a year 365. This is if our veterans are thriving, that means the rest of our community is thriving. That means that we have the systems. That means that the preferred way that we look at our schools, and if our military credit for prior learning is going on without a hitch, right? That means that our credit for prior learning is going on without a hitch. Like it is a test. So Ernie taught me that there was a better way. Yes, I still donate to veteran causes, right? That's veteran friendly, but are we really making systems that sustain veterans for a long time? I gotta say, Ernie, we celebrated 11, 12 years of doing stand downs in Northern Indiana. You
Yeah,
started
it's
with
about
one. You
started
you
with
started
one, and and it was a mirror towards the South Bend. And I said, why can't we do in here in rural Elkhart? Oh, Elkhart doesn't have the population
Oh yeah.
for veterans. They don't need anything, any VA services. And I'll tell you, and it's just like I was in this county and I was working here, and I'll tell you, we discovered through that we had 33,000 veterans were living in our county. And I was like, there's no way. And it just opened my eyes to, the National Guard, how they were activated. And then they were just kind of like done. There's a reservist from South Bend. A lot of them lived here in this county, and they went to Afghanistan, came back. And I was like, yo, this is crazy. I was like, there's a bunch of us out here. And we quickly created our community. We're all good friends. A lot of us are good friends, same age group, but we care about our stuff, and we're always pushing to make things better. So, some of the things that I've seen is that if you identify a homeless veteran, um, we have the resources and connections to get that person housed within 24 hours, to get the assistance they need. Resources, when it comes to food or anything like that, emergency services, uh, we have those types of connections. We're currently developing things to make things easier for veterans that are dealing with mental health. But here's the thing, like if and it's sad to say this, but I think that since the things have calmed down for us, to them the war is over. To us, the war continues. So that fight, um, that energy and that gusto that we had in the military, it has to go somewhere. So guys like us, Dana, Roy, and I see it often with business acumen. Um, they take it personal and they go out there and they create things to make things easier for other veterans. I've met guys that create judo, jujitsu gyms, or they create these marches that go around the country, and it's all, clothes for Joe's is another one. Like, these guys are all, we understand what we're looking for, and no, we can't all just do the same thing. But I'm going to tell you something, that we found something that is so valuable here, and that's our veterans are the original essential American, and they were so valued at one point that you decided to put them on a wall, and they come home, and now, um, we have to kind of take care of that. And I'm not saying that, we move, everything for them and make things so comfortable that they don't need any challenges. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the competencies that we're trying to show, that a veteran has a value, and that value needs to be credited, whether it's school, whether it's working, and the sacrifice of time you can never get back. None of us will ever get back our 23 years, our 14 years that we served, and I don't want to get it back. But I'm saying that these relationships, and now that Kelly, she's been introduced to everyone in the whole state of Indiana that runs JVSG, and it brings an interesting point: the monetary value that we rarely talk about of the veteran. What is a veteran worth? And I want to know if you can share that, Kelly.
So there's some, thank you. And I I appreciate, I just kind of want to put this out here as you close that up, and then we'll talk dollars and cents for a quick minute. Probably lean on Roy because he knows this way way well. But I do want to say, like, as a civilian, somebody that has never served, I appreciate wholeheartedly that when these systems come into play, that you're inviting me, TPMA, you're inviting these civilian agencies, these employers into your space to really get to know, like, how we work together. And that was really like the start of Ernesto and I's friendship and working on the stand downs. Is he had a civilian sidekick, right? That knew systems on and like, I knew community providers, and I knew, economic providers, and this is where we came together, and I was like, oh, this is good. We should do this more often, right? Um, and we should work together more often in partnership. Um, the dollars and cents are there. So like if a family comes to to the state, any state, it's usually 16 to 1. So every dollar that we put in to a veteran or um, we do towards a veteran cause, $16 comes back, right? So we're talking employment, taxes. I mean, you guys kind of hit it across the board. But Roy, in your data mind, what am I missing here? Like I got a ton of numbers, like 64 to 1 if you bring a family of 4. Like I got taxes and you name it. Like, but what comes to your mind?
One of the things I saw was local impact. So for just federal dollars, for every $1 the VA will spend on a veteran, it'll make $1.60 impact to that local community. Um, so that's really just federal dollars. But again, we're not one and done by and large. Uh, we're often so young that we are looking for those second careers. And with some of the stability the VA and retirement offers, you can get really high performers filling roles that normally they wouldn't be able to afford that quality of individual, but they are looking for purpose. And one of the things that I joked about is I love not having any direct reports within vets. Um, you know, leading hundreds, to just being responsible for myself gave me time to be able to work on how am I as an individual contributor, focus on the community and such like that. So there are tangibles, but I also think that the intangibles are really crucial as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So
Civilian companies struggle to see where veterans fit, right? You get an 11 series, an 11 Bravo in the Army, an infantryman who gets out after 20 plus years, and you're looking for an operational supervisor who has got 10 years or 5 years of experience in a manufacturing community, where you look at their resume and you go, this guy has zero experience in a manufacturing community. But I'm telling you, I will take an 11 Bravo with that much experience over somebody who has 5 years of experience in manufacturing, because they are going to bring a level of leadership that you've never seen before in your life. And that's one of the things that I think is a break. And I'd really like to maybe have another webinar discussion about someday is breaking through that ice of what companies think a veteran is, compared to what they really are and what they bring to the table, because I think many of our veterans are underutilized. I think many of our veterans are undervalued for the simple fact that they didn't go to a college and immediately go into the workforce. Because what a veteran brings that has served 5 years, 10 years, I'll even take a 5 year veteran over a college graduate sometimes, for the simple fact of what they have done, what they have been through, and the leadership that they've been taught. Now, that's not every veteran, but I can tell you, most veterans who come out have a sense of leadership, pride, and hard work ethic that is above par, and will outlast many of the other civilians that you've probably hired, fired, and lost over the last 12 months, if you just give us the opportunity to introduce you to them.
perfectly said, Dana. I'll take you up on that challenge, right? Aaron and I will go back and we'll take you up on that, right? We'll
Good.
get it together, but I know you'll commit to it. So we'll there's the follow through there. So we did have a question. It says, what steps can we make in our community to get coordination of services for veterans? Anybody want to answer that? Like,
Yeah. So I think here's the thing. All right. So if you want to get involved, you want to get connected. So I know in several communities we've started these homeless coalitions. Um, they're usually ran by a city or some organizer, city planner. Somebody there has to be. So we started a homeless coalition here almost 13, 14 years ago. Okay, homeless coalition meets. They met once a month, and then we created another one that was for not the homeless coalition, but it was veterans, uh, like veteran vet to vet kind of network. So then what we ended up doing last year is we put them all together and now we all meet, and it's this continuity thing. But all it's the way that you start is you can go, and we started our coalitions by getting two organizations together. The most important was the homeless center in your area or a treatment center in your area. Why? Because that's the most that's going to be the most urgent care that you're going to need, is someone that's, you know, distressed, dealing with something that they can't handle, and nothing can cure it except a professional, right? So that's number one. So it's not about housing anymore. Now it's like um, an emergency response to someone's mental health is like the number one thing. Number two, you're going to do your homeless part, right? You're going to get involved, find out where veterans are being housed. There's usually a program. Um, and every veteran, every facility that is considered a registered facility with the Department of Veteran Affairs can, it's got to be considered an institution. So it has to offer four things, I believe, four types of treatment, and it can be considered a treatment center. And there'll be veterans there, and they can be identified, but it's still private. They sometimes it's like pulling teeth trying to get in there. Even for VA employees, it was hard for us to get in there. Uh, but that's the other thing, that when you connect with them, you're going to get connected. And then the other one is get with your jobs for veterans state grant people that are in the communities. They're usually in every county. We have one representative there. If not, I can share my information. This is for the state of Indiana, but nationwide, there is some representative that represents your county, whether it's a veteran service officer or it's a jobs for veterans state grant. And that's how you get involved and you get connected. So it's about networking. It's about figuring out what works. Find out where your next stand down is and ask if your company can be a part of it. And that's the connectivity piece. And the other one is Invets is a great connector, and they could tell you a little bit more about connecting with on their platform.
Yeah, thank you. I 100% agree. Ernesto, thank you very much. The VSO is huge. I think getting
Yeah, no, we don't know what a VSO is. I know what a VSO is, but maybe others don't want to know what a VSO
veteran
is. What's a
service officer.
Yeah,
A
sorry,
veteran
Dana.
service, yeah.
You're back
It's
on.
usually
Go.
a veteran that sits somewhere in the courthouse building that helps veterans with all of their problems and needs and stuff like that. Probably one of the most important people in every single community is out there. And that's one of the things I say is you know, local governments, mayors, all of those people, they need to be involved in their communities and their veteran communities. We say veteran ready, veteran friendly. Everyone loves veterans and loves to wave the flags on 4th of July and Veterans Day and Memorial Day, but it needs to be year round, every single day, 365. Right? And it's not just loving veterans, but loving everybody. Be out there for everybody, but be involved. Talk to your VSOs. What can I do to help you? Make sure your VSO is doing their job properly, because if you are not a strong VSO, your county, your town is going to suffer. So in the end, having the best people doing the right jobs is a huge important thing. Getting the community involved. When I say that, like Invets has just started a summit series. We just did one in Indy, and it's going to go around the entire state into every single region. Getting those companies and those veterans together, right, in one location, having those discussions, doing those in-person, face-to-face interviews. We had a ton of companies and a ton of veterans that came down to Indy. Those are important things that we do. There's the mental health side, just like Ernesto said, supporting those veterans, the VSO side, helping them find good careers, being part of your community. In order to keep them from being homeless, they have to have a job. Companies have to want to hire veterans and allow veterans to come in, even the ones that maybe are not as, fortunate, or have, the law of maybe some things that they did when they were younger that kind of sets them back. Allow them to grow, allow them to be successful. And that's what we've got to do is get past that stigma of every veteran is the angry veteran in the movie or on the TV show, and then start building the community around them or with them and allow them to be part of that community. And they won't sit in your VFWs and just hang out with each other. They'll be out there celebrating and being and participating in every event that you have, coaching your kids' teams and doing all of that type of stuff.
I appreciate it, Ernesto. Um, Dana. Real quick, Carrie was from Ohio. She was like, do you see a future of getting our middle states together at some point? I feel like that would be an awesome summit. Like we absolutely do. Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, like at some point coming together. All of these things that we talked about, I don't think are unique to Indiana. I think that they play out across the country.
Yeah.
So just real quick, how I have coordinated veterans services together is looking what assets are already on the map, figuring out the good players, right? Because there's bad actors in this space, and everybody that's interacted in the space has a list of I'm not going to associate with them, right? But I'm going to do the things for the good people doing good work. So I would say identify the good people doing good work and start bringing them together. Maybe it's coffee, maybe it's dinner, maybe it's just, saying let's all meet at B-dubs, right? And talk about what the art of the possible is. It's what worked for all of us in this room, right? It's talking about what is possible. What's our future look like? And what does our future look like together? And can we make communities better? Can we make veterans' lives better?